Okay, thanks so much, Tammy. It's an absolute honour to be invited along and to such a discerning and slightly intimidating group of people. My name's Andrew Sinclair. I'm the director of Geo Trash Management. I come from Tasmania, Australia. My background is in metal fabrication, engineering, and commercial diving, but I'm also, a fairly dedicated conservationist, and GTM is the kind of thing that I've always wanted to do with my life. And moving to Lombok with my partner in 2019, we started the company. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to sharing our 6 years of experience with this technology. I'm just going to dive straight into my presentation. Yeah, I did notice that from some of the recordings on YouTube that your previous presentations have been very detailed in sort of the scientific and the sort of test results and things like this. So normally I'm used to sort of presenting to local government authorities, banjars and things like this. So this is a really exciting session for me because I'm able to explain about a lot of the testing that we've done. So just to give you an overview of what our company is all about, we're here to pioneer technology that's designed to address zero value plastic. That's the type of plastic that isn't normally recycled. Our mission is to deliver the processes to developing countries with a view on across everything that we do. Being from Australia, I would say an Australian standard, but actually when it comes to environmental standards, I would say Australian standards aren't very high because of the nature of our industry there. So European standards it is. And our aim is to empower communities and local businesses to address the waste management challenges in their own communities. And we would provide the technology and services to them to reduce their pollution and air emissions in these, what I would call developing communities. So we recycle a really broad spectrum of plastics, and this particular dump site, I guess this is an illegal dump site that's not far from where I live, just down the road actually. So this is the typical type of plastic that you can see here that we deal with. It's HDPE, polyethylene, polystyrene, and LLDPE. Our process doesn't require washing, and we don't have a complex pelletizing or sorting process. Here you can see a bit closer the types of plastic that we find on a regular basis coming. This is basically our feedstock. So it's a lot of soft plastics, HDPE, single use water cups, things like polystyrene, takeaway containers, and shopping bags. And basically in Indonesia, you've got a lot of people on a very, very low income that tend to live day by day. So they buy small servings of things. They don't buy huge packets of oil and foodstuffs. They buy single serving of a lot of things, especially like shampoos and soaps. It's an economic thing. So through our company's lifespan, we've been testing all sorts of different types of plastic materials and trying to figure out where our focus should be, because things like flip-flops and snack packaging, multi-layer snack packaging, they actually yield a very, very low amount of oil and a high percentage of gas or a high percentage of carbon. But when we start to look at polyplastics, polyethylenes and HDPEs and LLDPEs, we get a very high oil yield rate. So what we've also found is that multi-layer snack packaging and things like flip-flops, but they have a high PET content. So that presents problems with chlorine contamination and toxicity. So what we've decided to do is have a policy of leaving those out of our feedstock, because those plastics are actually better off at the moment right where they are, not in our process, because our process does unlock those toxic chemicals if they're in there. So we're very particular and very careful about the feedstock that we use. So there's two photos of our unit. This is a demonstration plant that we financed ourselves and we brought to Lombok, Indonesia, to show that the technology works. We're also very involved with the aggregation of plastics and working with communities, because our whole goal behind this thing is to catch the plastic at the door before it goes into rivers or into illegal dump sites or is open burned or in backyard incinerated. So here's a little video on, and it's a really bad video, I'm sorry, but it gives you a pretty good idea of what's going on. This is a bag ripper. It's let's see if I can turn that volume down a little bit. Yeah. Sorry, this is a bag ripper, so it's to open bags of plastic. This is a trommel, and the trommel kicks out small coffee sachets and small pieces of plastic, and then our guys are sorting it out, getting rid of the snack packaging and any PET, and then we bale it up. And those bales, we bale it because it's easy to transport and easy to store, and it goes into our machine in the next process really, really well. This is a very, very small scale. This is to show a community hub that we could easily bring to villages or regional areas. So the way the machine is loaded is we're compacting and pressing the plastic into our reactor. That way nobody has to actually physically go in there. It's all remotely operated, and all of the temperature, pressure sensing is recorded. And this is our oil product. So from our pyrolysis process, we can actually get a fairly high quality diesel product that can be used as diesel. We've already done a 300-kilometre road test. So from Lombok to Java in a Hino dump truck, a Toyota Hino dump truck. So that is, that's been a big win for us. And the reason behind that quality of oil that we're getting is is from a lot of different parameters that we've managed to identify as being really important. Those parameters can be, the temperature that we get to and the time it takes us to get to that temperature. It can be pressure, it can be water content, and it's absolutely feedstock and also catalyst as well. So our whole model is to drive like community action. So we want to supply these small scale sorting hubs. Also our advanced recycling, or the pyrolysis system, as a decentralized but still small scale. So this one here is a 700 kilo is our optimal batch size. So we would have those sort of satellite pyrolysis units with about maybe 15 to 20 of these smaller hubs, all providing that system or that facility with plastic. And so we're producing a product that we call geodiesel. We've been here for 6 years. We've had the machine on the ground for 4 years, and this is a bit of a summary on all the test results that we've managed to do. First of all, we've proven that we've been able to produce a high quality diesel product from zero value plastics. We've had that product tested with SGS, which is a multinationally recognized testing company. We have a cetane index of 56, which is actually higher than the highest quality diesel you can get here, which is 53. So after these test results, we've actually got an off-taker who's been using our fuel. They're an Australian pearl farm based here in Lombok, and they've been buying our fuel for the pump price, because they've decided that it's just like Pertamina Dex, because they're the ones who have been driving the truck on it. So we're very, very excited about those on-road tests, as well as the other diesel engine tests that we've been doing. So from that 700 kilos of plastic input that we put into this machine, we're getting about 7% of that is water, 15% of that is carbon black, 20% of that is a heavy oil, which has a lot of wax in it, and 42% of that is a usable diesel product, which we call geodiesel. And there's about 15%, which is we call a syngas, which is the gases from the pyrolysis process that don't condense. So it's your very light gases like your hydrogens and your butanes and your very, very short chain hydrocarbons. So we're using that gas to fuel the machine, and we've managed to get our fuel consumption. So to heat the machine, we use our own fuel. We've managed to get our fuel consumption down to 145 litres per batch, which we're very excited about. So to get all of this product out of 700 kilos of plastic, we're only using 145 litres of our own product. So this is some of our lab results. This is actually straight pyrolysis oil coming from mosquito nets that we maintaining a European environmental and safety standard we did tests with for the World Health Organization, and also our own plastic oil. Normally we would do distillation. So the photo in the middle is the first fraction that we get from our distillation process. But the oil samples on the right-hand side are actually straight pyrolysis oil. Because of the plastic purity, like our feedstock was exactly one type of plastic with these tests, polyethylene plastic. At the top left-hand corner is carbon black. So from our pyrolysis machine, we're getting pyrolysis oil, syngas, and carbon black with a small amount of water. So the big question was, okay, how's our PAH level in the carbon black? So we had the carbon black tested with a university called Gadjah Mada, and they're one of the most widely recognised Indonesian universities that deal with oil and gas. So they've picked up 5 different PAH chemicals in our carbon black. Now these percentages are I'm not saying they're high or they're low. What I'm saying is we had it tested and these are the results. Actually, I'm more than happy to share these results with anyone who wants to email me, because I know this is super interesting for some people. After looking at these results, the university did say that this carbon black, according to this PAH level, would be fine for recycling and using as a hardener for tyres. They said that it probably wouldn't pass for any plastic as an additive for plastic production with food products. But if it's shoe soles or car tires or things like that, then yeah, it's definitely a product that could be recycled. So that's something that we're really interested to look at further and try and get some type of partnership with a tire manufacturing or plastic manufacturing company about our carbon black. The next question was, let's look at heavy metals. We want to see, do we have mercury or lead or arsenic or cadmium? So no, none of that. We do have carbon, oxygen, which aren't metals, but this is actually a elemental test. We've got sodium, magnesium, aluminium, silicon, chlorine, potassium, calcium, titanium, and iron. So none of those metals are actually considered toxic, definitely not those levels. Chlorine probably is at a very high level, but there's chlorine in water, and so it's not really deemed as a toxic level. So we're very, very happy about that. Again, I can send this test data. The big one is the PCB, the polychlorinated biphenyls. So the test that we had tested about 10 different varieties of PCB. When they say less than 0.0002 milligrams per kilo, it means that their machine, the lowest it will go is 0.0002, and it didn't detect anything. So they're not saying we don't have it, they're just saying that it's less than that. So basically it was undetected. So we're very, very happy about that. If we were doing PET and vinyl and, your snack packaging, then PCBs may come up, but because we don't use that, then yeah, we don't get it. So we're super happy with our carbon black testing. However, you know, it's not all clear. There are metals and there are PAH contamination in the carbon black. So we do take real care with our our health safety and environmental policies. So when we're handling carbon black and we're working with the oil, we're making sure that we're working to that European standard by using the right face masks, the gloves, ventilation, eye protection, and also things like tag out, lockout when people are working on electrical systems. And in this little video, then that was sort of an example of how we build frames to manage machine parts. We build trolleys to manage like drums and heavy equipment, and we use cranes quite a lot just to minimise the manual handling. So another test that we did was our own exhaust emissions. So when we're using our pyrolysis oil to heat the machine, we want to know what's in that exhaust that comes from the pyrolysis process itself, especially when we start turning on gases. So we did a week of testing with a company here called Sucafindo. They bought a team of 5 people and all of their equipment all the way from Jakarta to Lombok, which cost us an absolute fortune. And this is their results. So when we compare on the graph, there's an orange column. That's the Indonesian emission quality standards for general like business and also for thermal waste processing activities. So that's the Indonesian standard. The white bar on the graph is all about the European Waste Incineration Directive. The blue bar is our emission results. So nitrogen oxide, sulfur dioxide, and total particulate, we pass with the European Waste Incineration Directive. With the carbon monoxide, we're a little bit high, and that's because we didn't have enough oxygen going in to our burning chamber. We should have been blasting our furnace with a little bit more oxygen. So our workaround with that is to have a carbon monoxide monitor in our exhaust system, so we can get an alarm when that's above 150 parts per million, which whatever the standard is there. So things like mercury, hydrogen chloride, and hydrogen fluoride, we don't have any of that in our exhaust. So we're also very happy with that. With that result. Through our environmental impact study and our life cycle assessment, we've been doing with a third party who are called Go Sustainable. We also looked at our CO2 footprint across the production from the aggregation of plastic through to the production of the diesel and the delivery of that diesel to the end user. So this is from collecting the plastic all the way to getting the diesel to the client. So for standard diesel from well to pump, their CO2 emission factor per litre is 3.14 kilos of CO2 per litre. For the Indonesian B20, which is a biofuel, that is a 6.08 kilos per litre. And for a similar fuel, but from a different region, it's 7.09 kilos per litre. So our CO2 production per litre is 2.19. And it's almost 1 kilo less than standard diesel. So we're also very, very happy about that. If we weren't using our own pyrolysis oil to heat our system, and we were using methane from landfill gas extraction or a biodigester, then our CO2 footprint would be about 1 kilo per litre, which would be amazing. and that's what we're working towards next. That's going to be when we scale up for our next project. We're aiming to tap into a landfill, which will be about 250 meters away from where our next facility will be. So the oil testing. So, being part of the conservation community and avid environmental sort of campaigner, and that's and people such as yourselves, we're in it over the transition period. We know that the global fight is to reduce CO2 emissions and to get out of this rut with like plastics and oil production and fuel, fossil fuel use. So our focus is to during that transition period when we work away from fossil fuel for energy production, is to find a source of the fuel, for diesel, for those industries that really need it. And it's going to take a long time for them to sort of turn over into that, into electrification. But what this oil testing is really, what the oil testing shows, it's very interesting, is that the pyrolysis oil is made up of a majority of just hydrocarbons, as well as 24% of fatty alcohol groups. Not a lot of acid. We've only got one phthalate acid type, which was the 2.01% that the gas chromatography picked up. The rest of it is straight hydrocarbon or a fatty alcohol group. So the good thing about fatty alcohol groups is that fatty alcohols are basically a hydrocarbon with an oxygen molecule attached. And what that gives us is more oxygen actually in the fuel, which is fantastic. As you know, from what we know, it's good because you've got more oxygen actually contained in the fuel itself, which will give you a better burn. So we're working with the Central Queensland University on analysing the fuel on test benches on diesel engines and petrol engines as well, on test benches, to analyse the exhaust emissions of the fuel, as well as analysing what happens when you upgrade the fuel with different chemicals like citronellol. And citronellol comes from lemongrass, and lemongrass grows wild all over Indonesia. It grows everywhere. And so getting citronellol from lemongrass and having that as an additive into diesel could reduce the CO2 footprint of the diesel exhaust emission. So we want to go into this research with the Central Queensland University. Probably by June this year, we'll get started with that. We're just waiting on the funding applications to come through. Yeah. So in terms of cost behind the pyrolysis technology, we want to upgrade our system to a 10-ton per batch facility, which would have a capacity to run 3 times per week. So that gives us about 1,440 tons of plastic a year. So you can see on the right-hand column, we've got our total investment, which would be CapEx, 1 year of overheads and about 5 months of OpEx. So we're just ducked in under $1 million. So we're $909,000 US dollars. Our revenue, which is purely from the sale of diesel and products from distillation, as well as carbon black, no carbon credits and no plastic credits calculated into that revenue. We're looking at a earning before income tax, depreciation and amortization of 424,000. So after depreciation and taxes, we're looking at a net profit at around 27%. So that gives us a return on investment in about 4.7 years, just under 5 years. So our next project will be a 10-ton per batch system, and what we're aiming to do is to verify these numbers are correct, because not only are we looking at applying pyrolysis toward a really devastating problem that we have in Indonesia, which is your air pollution and oceanic and river pollution, but we're looking to prove that it is actually bankable. We need it to be bankable so that we can get loans to build more of these facilities, attract other competitors into the market, and also find investors who would be happy with a 27% return. So this calculation doesn't include land or building, it's just the machinery. And actually it's so it's a very basic what GTM could bring to several different businesses, to a company that had a lot of waste plastic, or a company that was more like an NGO that had some financing that wanted to install a system like this under their own umbrella in an island community, or some let's say like their particular area, and it doesn't necessarily need to be in Indonesia. We will be building this machinery and this equipment in Indonesia, but we're absolutely looking to go internationally if our client would require that. So the impact of getting rid of this zero value plastic, 1,440 tons of zero value plastic a year here in Indonesia would mean that we would divert 130 tons of plastic out of rivers and the ocean and lakes. We would reduce household burning by 677 tons per annum. And those illegal dump sites that I started with would be reduced by 202 tons. We don't see these sort of incineration projects much in Lombok, but in Bali there are plenty of these. So in Bali it would be 288 tons of plastic incineration reduced, and these metrics are all based on where the plastic goes that's not sent to a landfill or recycled, based on data from the World Bank. So to get the plastic from the door, we need to engage with households and local waste collectors. So our collection network really does need to align with plastic credit certification, even though we don't include it in our forecasting. So at the moment we're registering with a certification body so that GTM can actually be listed as a plastic credit provider on these different forums, and that plastic credit money will go straight back into a community buyback system and these small hubs that we'd like to build to give communities access to those sorting, packing and baling facilities, so that we could pick it up in a truck like that one in the top right hand corner. Our current community collection strategy has just been, it went crazy. It was so successful that we had to shut it down, because when people found out we were going to pay them for plastic, then we just had so much plastic we absolutely could not handle it. We got 24 tons in 3 days. So there was no way that our little demonstration plant could deal with that. So after we're still operating it, but very, very quietly. So that's why you don't see much of us on social media, because we are testing it in small communities, but we can't be telling everybody in Lombok, because there's 4 million people in Lombok. And once they find out, then they're like, come on, you've got to buy my plastic. We're like, sorry, we can't take it all. So But that's also a good result. It's great to know that the aggregation process is going to be that fluid. Just to give you an idea about what the pricing is for plastic that works well here. So for us to buy direct from the community members would be paid 6 cents per kilo. The operator of the plastic collection point would be paid 12 cents per kilo, and that means GTM would pay 18 cents to the operator and the community member, and the plastic credit sales price would be around 20 cents. So this is sorry, it's a little bit confusing because I just jumped straight into the pricing, but this concept here is like a micro collection point. This is our man Oggy, and this is the compactor that we built, which runs on 12 volts. So this is very easily connected to a solar panel. What the mechanism is that drives this is it's a 12 volt car jack, actually. So it has 2 tons of force, and it produces a 20 kilo bale, which is 50 centimeters by 50 centimeters by 50 centimeters. So this baler with a solar panel, a battery, and a bench with a set of scales built into it, and one of these cafe tents would cost us around $2,900 US to provide to small communities or people who are working in these local markets. They're like wet markets. All the villages, all the community comes to this one place to do their morning shopping, and it's quite chaotic, and there's a lot of plastic being lost around those areas. So this little compactor could compact about 100 to 150 kilos per day, about 1.4 tons per month. So we're really keen to get this out there into the community. So basically, our mission outcome is economic impact, infrastructure empowerment, and social and environmental impact. It's for us, it's all about the best case public waste management that we can bring with community empowerment. We're bringing the technology and the actual equipment to organisations in locally who want to run it, who want to make it their business, and thus creating potentially thousands of indirect jobs and also some pretty significant savings in fuel costs. Increasing tourism value, and also being from Tasmania, we now have a huge brand that Tasmania promotes itself as clean green, where our produce, our fisheries, and our tourism is all about fresh air and crisp, clean foodstuffs. So when your community starts to take care of the environment, you get all of these massive economic impacts, which are absolutely huge. But that does take a bit of time. You've got to be dedicated, and it has to work. But it does work. So that's what I know coming from Tasmania. So these are the groups that we're associated with. Procom are a petrochemical engineering company out of Australia. We've been doing a lot of work with them. CSIRO, the Commonwealth Science Innovation Industry Research Organisation, and IPPEN, the Indo-Pacific Plastic Innovation Network, the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade from Australia, and BRIDA, which is Indonesia's Science and Innovation Network as well. Our team, so on our advisory side, we've got Dr. Michael Batten, who's from the CSIRO, Lisa Martins, who's also she's into the ESGs and company sort of our more commercialization side of things. Kevin Barrington's been in Indonesia for many, many years and done 6 landfill gas extraction projects, converting gas into electricity. On the management side, Leonie is actually quite a well-known MC and radio presenter. Her brother, Reza, the guy down the bottom in the center, is our distribution agent. His family actually has 4 petrol stations, gas stations, if you like, in around Lombok. The other guys, I'm not going to go on about it, but the other guys are basically professionals in there. So Santi's a professional in accounting. Yessi's all about the administration on the government side, and TJ on the bottom left is she's our sustainability advisor. So she's the one who's been doing our environmental impact study. And Katarina Persson, she's my wife from Sweden. Her background is in events and like media and news. So we make a good team. So thank you very much. And if you maybe I'll put my email address in a comment section, but feel free to ask any questions, or if you want to email me, then I can send you some of these test results. I hope you'll be interested in that.
Thank you, Andrew. I'm curious if people have questions, raise hands. There's a couple here in the chat. So when you're doing this pyrolysis, how much cleaning is involved? Does it need to be cleaned in between batches?
Yeah, that's a good question. We do need to clean it, but not in between every batch. We would clean once a week, and that's just opening up some of the pipe work and knocking out some. It's sort of like a carbon buildup. It can be a little bit oily or it could be dry, but it's just to knock out some of the carbon buildup and then put everything back together again.
And what percentage of the plastic waste do you collect that's actually used?
60%. So when we're collecting from organisations that do beach cleanups, it's around 60%. When we're collecting straight from the community, it's a little bit higher. It's more like 75 to 80%. But we say to our aggregation partners or the community, like, just give us all the plastic, because we don't want them picking and leaving things behind.
Okay. And from Carl from Open Oceans asked, what waste is actually going to landfill? That's an interesting question, because you can sit back and say that's where you need to target education in your community. Say, hey, we can't do anything with this. What is that waste?
Here we see a lot of mica. So it's like a food packaging, which is a clam shell. It's see-through. It's really clear. It's made of PET. No one can do anything with that. No one does anything with that at the moment, I should say. It's highly recyclable, but nobody uses it. Food trays that are made of PET aren't recycled. Snack packaging, silver, like chip packets and coffee sachets, they're not recycled. Most PVC here is not recycled. I'd say almost all of it isn't recycled. It's reused a lot, but it's not recycled. What's the other big one that we see? Yeah, things like shoes and handbags and that sort of PVC, the vinyl stuff. It's very nothing. You can't really do anything with that. We can't use it. That's for sure.
Okay. From Ray Tim, what temperatures do you run, and have you attempted to recycle the solid leftovers to extract more?
We run up to our reactor temperature gets up to 450 degrees, but our condensation spillover is generally 300 degrees. With the carbon black, we don't see that there's much left in there. We can't drive the machine up much higher than that. We we run out of oil and gas when the machine gets up into that 400 degrees. So that's when we know we've reached the end of the process, when our oil stops flowing through and our gas stops coming. So yeah, it's like, all right, we're finished. So there's nothing really left in there, but there is a calorific value of 4,161 kcal. So that carbon black actually would make a good briquette if it was for a cement industry that were going to burn it at, you know, high temperatures like 1,500 degrees Celsius.
So, Dr. Tim, Ray, I see you shaking your head. Did that answer your question? I'm happy to have you all unmute and continue dialogue because some of this, I have to admit, is a little over my head. And that I want to make sure the experts get their answers to whatever they have. So, Ray, continue.
Yeah, thank you for that, and thank you for the presentation, Andrew. It was very informative. A lot of the information you shared is, in my experience, been kept very close to the vest by the companies who are developing this stuff. So this kind of information, I think, is extremely valuable for those who are trying to emulate what you're doing. But also, I mean, there's some mystery to me about you get this waxy residue in the carbon black, and in theory, I mean, if with enough temperature and pressure, you can break any molecule to its elements. And so I think about in a closed system how you could just completely get rid of all of it, right? And I think one of the questions that was asked earlier, Carl was asking more about like what is the fraction of solid waste after the pyrolysis process. And so my question and his are really kind of similar in that at least I think, Carl, I don't want to speak for you, but are there ways to optimize or like put on a some kind of additional loop where you basically end up with nothing in your solid waste at the end of it?
I reckon you could do a gasification thing with that. So we've got 15% carbon black coming from the pyrolysis process, and that definitely has a calorific value. That's almost like 4,000 kcal is around your sort of brown coal sort of quality. The waxy oil that I mentioned probably didn't really go into it very deeply, but that waxy oil we would distill next. So we're working on a scaled distillation system, and the residue from the distillation system is a polypropylene sort of wax. It has the same characteristics as boot polish. It's really black. It smells like boot polish. In fact, I'm sure boot polish just comes straight from refineries. It does have some, it's got carbon black in it, plus it has some naphthas in it and things like that. So, but with that material, we just put it back into the pyrolysis machine, and it does crack again. When we get really heavy waxy product from, mainly it comes a lot from HDPE when we don't get our temperature high enough fast enough. So all of that we just throw back into the machine, and when we run through again, normally it's gone. But our aim is to get those materials, which are sort of the leftovers, like the carbon black and those waxes. We want to find industries that need them. So carbon black is an interesting one. We would need to process our carbon black to extract any metals from the carbon black. So actual pieces of aluminium, pieces of like steel screws or things that might end up coming in. But yeah, the carbon black is a commodity. Like it's expensive to make. It's super high CO2. The normal production of carbon black is a massive CO2 footprint. So go back to your question, is there another process you could use? The best thing I would say would be gasification to put your waste into.
Okay. Did you get well, Ray, we can unmute and ask different questions. There's a question here from Keith. How are you funding this currently? Your financials seem a tad light on the overhead. which is interesting.
Yeah, so we're self-funded. We've been financed by friends and fools, and scratching. We've been doing a lot of like financing, selling shares in our company, so equity financing. But we did get a really nice, a really nice grant from the Australian government through the CSIRO to do development and research into the distillation. Overall, it's been mainly loans and equity financing.
Okay.
Well, congratulations. I mean, I think you've done a spectacular job, and the fact that you've got a model that demonstrates any kind of ROI at this juncture is really quite impressive. So good job.
Thanks, Keith. Cheers.
How would you describe, there's been significant environmental concern about pyrolysis in any form, and it's mostly lumped as incineration. What your numbers seem to discredit that, and what's your thoughts, and what have your interactions with environmental groups been?
Well, I know what they're talking about, and when you have a look at pyrolysis in other countries, especially developing countries, it might as well be incineration with just limited oxygen. The conditions are really dangerous and terrible because the owners of these facilities just don't care. We're using pyrolysis to address an environmental issue. They're using pyrolysis to get cheap diesel at the lowest cost possible. So when you see the plants where they've got guys climbing inside, stacking tires up to the top of the reactors, and then they're just setting fire to the reactors basically, and there's smoke coming out everywhere because they're using tires as a fuel source. I can understand why pyrolysis gets a really bad name. We're trying to be a lot more scientific about what we do. So our system is completely sealed. If we don't get a good seal, then we don't run the machine. So we have a bottle of nitrogen standing next to our machine, which we purge the machine with first. So we'll get it up to 0.01 bar and hold it there for 20 minutes. And if the needle doesn't drop, then we're good to go because we know we have a seal on our system. When I started this business, I didn't realize that pyrolysis had such a bad rap. But of course, the more you see it, it's like, oh no, it can be really, really bad. It can be done very badly. But I think that's the same across the board. Oil and gas companies in other countries operate badly. Construction companies operate badly. It's something that we need to turn. We do need to turn this around, and that's what you guys giving me a chance to speak and share our results is amazing because it's super important. And the impact for us on that is that the Australian government will have nothing to do with pyrolysis. They don't want to issue licenses for any of this stuff. So if we set it up in Indonesia first and show that we can meet European standards on everything, we might be able to actually change policy in Australia on this.
Well, that's a really great point, because that was a question that I got an email yesterday from someone that says here in California, they won't even allow this stuff. So it's like, well, maybe we need to get another point of view about new technology. I want to pop to Raj real quick, who's had his hand up for a while. Raj?
Generally, for pyrolysis or incineration is the last resort. My question to you that what is the energy footprint or carbon footprint of your product? And then is that process is entirely sustainable on the what you call energy basis? It means, does it require the additional energy or additional fuel to run the pyrolyzer?
Yeah, I love that question, and it's really, really relevant because from our experience, it's difficult to get pyrolysis to be economically viable and to actually make something out of it. You need to scale it up, and so 700 kgs of plastic, we're able to make a profit on that because we're only using 150 liters of our own oil, and we're making around 500 to 600 liters of product with with that amount of energy. So we find that we're with the small scale system, so they're sort of like under 1 ton, it's a break even thing. Like it's enough to pay the guys, it's enough to run the machine, but you're not looking at much profit. But when you scale up to 10 tons, it is very profitable because you're making much more from that energy that you're putting in. There's a lot with a batch pyrolysis system. You are using a lot of energy to heat steel, but once you've got it there and you've got that mass inside, then it can be far more economical. The CO2 footprint, our CO2 footprint per kilo, so per liter of oil is 2.19 kgs per liter. So it's almost 1 kilo of CO2 less than standard diesel because there's not a lot of transport in what we're doing, and we're not using much fuel. We're not using much electricity. We're using around, for the whole 10-hour or 8-hour process, we're using about 500 kilowatts of electricity. You could argue that you've got to count the plastic production in first when you're talking about CO2 metrics, but we argue that it's waste. It wasn't designed to be a fuel. We picked it up from the garbage bin, so it's almost like we're not mining it, but it's like we got it from the source. So that's where it is. So if you count it that way, then our CO2 footprint is quite low. But there's an argument against that. Yeah.
Andrew, you had a question as well?
I think all of my questions have been answered. I mean, I was just really thinking about how pyrolysis is, Exxon, the state of California is suing Exxon for this false promise, but I think your technology is different. And so, your technology needs to be scalable and ramped up pretty quickly to get to the rest of the world because we need it, right?
Yeah, I agree. Yep. First, we had to test it and get results, and I'm really happy that now we're able to share those test results. And I think it's I don't want to sort of say, all right, here's the test results, so you don't need to worry about testing your own machine. That's a terrible thing to do. But it should if we have success in this, it should encourage other companies to start up, and that's what we really hope. This is not a problem that we can solve as one, company. It needs to be, it needs to be a technology. It's like many companies need to get it running, but at a particular standard, at a European standard. There needs to be a policy set, and this is the instruction on how to do it. And America does have that instruction. They're very specific about how you need to have these things set up and what the safety mechanisms need to be. So America's on the right track. And now Indonesia are about to start their own policy on pyrolysis, run by the Ministry of Energy and Renewable Resources, which is fantastic.
Well, that's interesting that you said that about America. US is on its interesting track. I've always wondered why some of these technologies have not been discovered or propagated here in the United States. Ray put a question in the chat here. Have you noticed any decrease in production or output due to biofouling of marine derived debris? I'll start with that one. He has another question here.
No, we haven't. We use a lot of beach cleanup material, and Altoa, the pearl farming company, they give us all of their nets and ropes and buoys which are covered in seaweed sometimes and barnacles. It doesn't really affect what we do at all.
And he also said, have you ever considered a franchise model?
Yes, we have. Definitely, yeah. It's actually a really good idea. I think Carl's got a question.
Yes, Carl's got a question. That's next. Yes.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, a couple of things. One is I can really see the application for this, particularly with the kind of data you've shown in places like Fiji, which has multiple islands, like one legitimate landfill, And and they're burning their plastic waste, both created and washed ashore, in open burning. And I really see some application for this kind of a process there. But Tammy brought up California, and I think California represents a lot of the environmental perspective. Is that by doing this on any kind of scale, not like in Fiji, but on scale, you're actually allowing the waste to be created in the first place, and the objective should be to not have the waste to begin with. And I wonder how you can address that, because there is a place where we're just using this process to get rid of waste in a new way, and it comes from a high level philosophical level versus what's the practical thing that we can actually do now.
Well, you can say, oh, my house is flooding, and run out of the house, or you can just go ahead and turn the tap off. But then it's this kind of thing. By generating a solution to a pollution problem, you're going to encourage people to pollute more. There's a massive problem at the moment. We're just here to try and help clean it up.
Right.
You can blog all you want, and sit on your computer and talk whatever you want on your chat groups, but we're here to try and stop it from going in a river. If you can come up with a packaging that can replace plastic, brilliant, bring it. Because we want it. The first thing I want with my company is for it to go bankrupt, because it's not necessary.
Okay, with that, you just won my complete devotion.
If I could do one follow-up, Tammy, if you don't mind.
Okay.
You brought up the turning off the tap. I think the high level about plastic is that's what we can do. We can turn off the tap at the production of polymers and that ideally that would be the best thing to do, but there's so much in the system already. Even if you could do that, you got to do something what's already in the system. The last follow-up is that there's a lot of work going on in Indonesia. Have you been in touch with groups like the Sungai Watch and Plastic Victor, and some of those groups that are really collecting a lot of plastic? And what's the reaction with your interaction with them?
They're doing an incredible job. They're right up to their armpits in it. These guys, we wonder, like, where's it all going? They are putting it back to a landfill, which is where it's meant to be in Indonesia. They're recycling as much as possible. They're making boards. They're doing things with it. It's awesome to watch them. But the environmental recycling plastic ocean thing is very fractured around here. It's competitive. Because getting grants and resources that you need to build your company up is extremely competitive. So when we speak with Sungai Watch, they're like, yeah, cool, but they don't want to. It's not like that. There should be a synergy there. We should be taking their waste, but I think this time next year we'll have the capacity to say, hey, Sungai Watch, give it to us. We want this type of plastic, and they'll be like, oh yeah, and then we'll be, because we have a facility right next door here. That's what you've got to say. You can't just talk about it, because they're too busy trying to keep their own thing going.
Yeah, I appreciate your perspective on that. We're not on the ground in Indonesia, but we track stuff all around the world, and what we're finding is more and more people doing work in Indonesia, and it's pretty clear to us, even from our distant seat in California, that they aren't working together.
Yeah, it's a pity, but it's a competitive space where it shouldn't be. I could say there's so much money sitting sort of and hovering around, and it's not going anywhere. And I don't want to name specific organisations. I'd love to, but there's a lot of these environmental impact funds that say, oh yeah, we're doing this and we're doing that. It's money coming from Unilever or Coca-Cola or Dow or wherever, but it just sits in accounts. It doesn't go anywhere. Nothing's happening with it. They want to see a multinational, massive company that with a project that's $22 million. Then they'll invest in it. It's like, okay, when's that going to happen?
Yeah, all this is interesting because it's so much what I'm trying to do with this rotary plastic stuff is just see who's doing what and how we can build on it. I'm going to come back in just a minute and sort of summarize up because I want to be cognizant we're losing folks because it's what we've been chatting, but I certainly, this is a very intelligent group sitting here, so I welcome all discussion. Ray has been it has inspired me with his perspectives on a regular basis about making sure that as we have these new technologies, remembering that we have to clean up the legacy plastic and turning off the tap deals with what's going forward, not what is. So thank you, Ray, for all your perspective on this stuff. So what you have another question to throw out?
Yeah, thank you. And I certainly don't mean to dominate the conversation here, but I do appreciate the chance to share a couple observations from your presentation, Andrew. One of them is that there's a lot of really interesting work being done with bioremediation mediated by mycelial fungi. And I'm wondering if you have had any contact with people who might be interested in seeing if they can get the last bits of organics and metals out of the carbon black or that could be bioremediated. And the other thing this is unrelated, but in one of the earliest slides you showed, one of the things that jumped out at me, one of the most important pathways for human exposure is airborne for micro and nanoplastics. And I think that it's critically important, especially in developing countries, that we show that we're concerned about, and I'm not accusing you of this, please don't take it that way, but that we demonstrate through all of our practices when we're attempting to solve problems like this one, that our workers are important to us, and that people in factories that are managing shredders and whatever are getting the appropriate or at least some kind of protective equipment. I know when I was a youngster, I was exposed to all kinds of stuff and would not have volunteered to use protective equipment. I didn't volunteer to use it, even though it was available. But some simple fallout traps in your shop, put a flat pan of water with some dish soap in it and just see what it collects in 24 hours in that thing. In terms of micro and nanoplastics, would probably be very illuminating. But all those guys that are in there, we know that now plastics are in our brains, they're in our testes, they're in every organ and cell. And so what we don't know is the biological ramifications of that. But we've all been led all along from the very beginning of plastics to act as if plastics are biologically inert. And we are learning, the literature is developing so rapidly that is just not the case. And so particularly with nanoplastics that can cross cellular barriers and get into organelles and actually affect cellular machinery operation, those are very troubling potentially. And so even maybe just some simple masks for the people that are breathing that dust all day, I think would go a long way towards their particular personal safety.
Absolutely.
Just an observation.
Yeah. No, point taken, and I appreciate that. It's in Indonesia, it's I like what you say about when you're young. I mean, I used to work as a boilermaker when I was young, and I didn't need to wear anything, mate. I was just like,
right.
I do tell my guys to wear organic vapor masks when we're dealing with the chemical side. When they're sorting plastic like that, it's pretty hot, and they just don't want to wear that sort of stuff.
No, I know it.
what we want to do is have more of an extraction fan system that draws air backwards, back into the machinery rather than have them exposed to it. But yeah, look, a dust mask and things like that, absolutely. We get criticised by that a lot because the guys who are sorting plastic aren't wearing gloves and things like that. But yeah, we absolutely have to work on it. I did watch your presentation from a few months ago, Ray, and one massive thing that you said that impacted me was it's a $650 billion industry, the plastic industry. So you're not going to stop that. And I'm like, whoa, that's okay. You really hit it on the head there. So anyway, I just wanted to say that. But with the fungus and microbial breakdown of plastic, I think it's really interesting. I haven't met anyone who's in that game yet, but we're definitely watching it because when we're looking at leachate from landfills and contaminated water, I think there's a real space for aerobic digestion with different bacteria and potentially fungus as well, to help with that process. Where we are starting more of a filtration water system R&D project this year with the Australian government. But I do know that part of their system also deals with aerobic bacteria, with getting those trace elements out of water, preparing it for drinking water. But yeah, point taken with the PPE, mate. We do wear masks and gloves when we're dealing with our oily stuff, but we should definitely work on it in our sorting and separation. Cheers.
I bet I can find some of these fungi people and connect you. I've seen some interesting stuff on it. The mycelium fungi are astonishing in their ability to handle some chemicals that are otherwise unresolvable with traditional kinds of processes, or what we think of as traditional processes.
Yeah. So you're talking more about carbon black there?
Yeah, or any of the solid residues you got that, and if it changes the value of it to have it, they tend to, their metabolic rates are governed by their thermal experience, right? So, but also that puts bounds on where they can operate because you can cook them. Which means they'll stop working, but they're astonishingly fast. Like within a couple weeks, they can just process this stuff. It's amazing.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah. I'll put my email address in the comment section.
Yeah, I'll send you an email. I'll find some of these companies doing this stuff.
Gunnar, you have a thought here?
I would like to say to Andrew, it's an excellent presentation. And as a comment also to Raymond, Tim, I've been working with plastics, like with the microplastic, but also with microbes and others. And and fungi. It could be a technology, of course, but it's in a very early stage. I think what you have, Andrew, you have some hands-on kind of technology. It seems like it's working. And also it's not recycling. It's recycling in a way, but the hype today is recycling of everything and recycling of plastics. I would just want to say that I sent you an email, by the way, another email during the presentation, and maybe we could have another contact. But an excellent presentation, and I like things which are hands-on. It doesn't seem to be an extremely high kind of investment either in starting with that. So that's what I wanted to say.
Well, we are at an hour and a half, and but I am so glad where the conversation went technical, and it's a little over my head, but I do take it all in. What I'm most happy about is that there is something that looks viable and it's doing well. It'd be interesting in the long term to see whether or not, there's so many island communities. They can't put one of these, they're too expensive. But if, shipping companies come through, I wonder if they could come through and pick up what they've dropped off and then take it to the place to someplace like that is central, like yours, where it can be dealt with. You're not at that scale yet, but these smaller island communities need help. And I'm sorry that somebody who was going to be here from the Peace Corps did not end up showing. I have a meeting with him next week, but they're really wanting to clean up the rivers and clean up stuff. But what do they do with it once they clean it all up on small little islands? So I wish there was a mini one of these, or maybe they get them a compactor and then they can compact it and eventually get it to a central location, which is what you need to scale.
That's the way to do it. Yeah. Like you say, you got a truck going there delivering all of this packaging stuff, food stuff, and why not fill it up with bales of plastic on the way back?
Yeah. It'd be a wonderful, simplistic pack it in, pack it out, and then take it somewhere to be dealt with. It's a massive problem, and so it's just good to know that there's good things happening out there. And we'll keep the conversation going now that we know that there's something out there viable. And I will be very honest, having these, Ray and Keith, Gunnar and Carl on this call to me, and all sort of confirming that this is an interesting thing. It looks good. So, and that the heart is in the right place. I think that's the problem is that people have to not only believe in your process, but believe that your ultimate goal is with your heart in the right place. And that's a big thing to conquer. So thank you.
And that it's commercially viable.
Yes.
That's the important one.
Right.